In the year 1337, two kingdoms stood at the edge of history: England and France, bound by blood, divided by ambition. What began as a legal dispute over a crown would become one of the longest and most destructive conflicts Europe had ever known. This is not the story of a single battle. It is the story of how pride, lineage, and power slowly dragged an entire continent into war. 14th century Europe was a world ruled by land, loyalty, and lineage. Power did not come only from armies, but from bloodlines carefully recorded and fiercely defended. France was the most powerful kingdom in Western Europe. Its population was large, its lands fertile, and its monarchy deeply rooted in tradition. England, though smaller, was ambitious. Its kings still controlled vast territories on French soil, inherited from earlier conquests. These lands created a dangerous contradiction. The King of England was a sovereign ruler, but also a vassal to the King of France. It was a fragile balance, and it would not last. In 1328, the balance collapsed. King Charles IV of France died without a male heir. For the first time in centuries, the Capetian dynasty came to an end. The French throne was vacant. Several nobles had claims, but one stood above the rest: Edward III of England. Edward was the nephew of the late French king. His mother, Isabella, was a French princess. By blood, Edward had a legitimate claim to the throne of France. But France refused to accept it. French nobles invoked Salic law, a legal tradition that barred inheritance through the female line. Instead, they crowned Philip of Valois, who became King Philip VI of France. To the French court, the matter was settled. To Edward, it was a rejection of his bloodline, and an insult he would never forget. At first, Edward chose patience. He was young, and his rule in England was not yet secure. Reluctantly, he traveled to France. There, the King of England knelt before the King of France and swore fealty for his lands on French soil. It was a moment of deep humiliation. Each reminder of his subordinate status strengthened Edward's resentment. Every dispute over land, taxes, or authority added fuel to the fire. France began interfering more aggressively in English-controlled territories. Year after year, the relationship between the two kingdoms deteriorated. Diplomacy still existed, but trust was gone. By the 1330s, tensions could no longer be ignored. Philip VI seized English lands in France, claiming Edward had violated his feudal duties. To Edward, this was no longer politics. It was an attack on his authority, and more importantly, on his legitimacy as a king. Edward made a decision that would change the course of European history. In 1337, he declared himself the rightful king of France. This was not merely a symbolic claim, it was a direct challenge to the French monarchy. A declaration that could not be ignored. The 100 Years' War had begun. This war was not caused by a single act. It was the result of decades of unresolved tension. Feudal loyalty clashed with royal ambition. Personal oaths collided with the rise of national identity. Neither king could afford to back down without appearing weak. Peace was possible, but pride made it impossible. What began as a dynastic dispute became a test of legitimacy and honor. Neither Edward nor Philip could foresee what they had unleashed. The conflict would last for generations. Fathers would fight alongside sons. Entire regions would be devastated. Cities would burn, and medieval warfare itself would be transformed forever. This was not a war that could be won quickly. It was a war that would reshape Europe. The 100 Years' War did not begin on a battlefield. It began in courtrooms, in family trees, and in the refusal of two kings to accept compromise. In the next chapter of this story, political rivalry will give way to open warfare, and Europe will witness battles that redefine how wars are fought. Because once the war began, There was no turning back.